Over-unders are out. Where do we think the Hornets are going to finish with that figure? Kon Knueppel speaks with SportsCenter. And do we finally have enough talent on the roster to answer some questions about LaMelo Ball? That's all today. Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcasts, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can also listen to him on Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Sports Radio 92.7 FM.
Fight it. I can hear you fighting it.
Kinda I was. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Nothing gets by you. I was gonna say your stash is stashing today and my phlegm is flemming today. So it should be a good show. Just a normal run-of-the-mill show here on Locked On Hornets. Speaking of YouTube, by the way, which is where you can catch us, subscribe, by the way. I want to get to 9,000 subscribers, then I want to get to 10,000. I would love to touch the double-digit mark, which might take a little bit longer, but I do want to get to 9,000 first.
We got to get ahead of the Suns. We're a little bit running behind the Locked On Suns podcast, and that's ridiculous. The Suns, I mean, we've given them all of our centers. The Hornets didn't even have a good center rotation, and we tricked them into taking them all, and now we need to take their place on the Locked On YouTube rankings.
I saw that on Twitter that you were trying to pick a fight with Locked On Suns, and I was like, oh, sure, we just give them all of our players. I don't know why we're trying to pick a fight with them, but if it means more subscribers for us, then so be it. So be it, in the words of Pusha T. Okay, you have a comment from one of our YouTube listeners that had something to say about Kon Knueppel, Doug, and it frustrated you, and it does not bring you good feelings because it reminds you of a certain player in the past. Tell us about this one comment that frustrated you.
This is from, this is a very long handle here. I'm going to go Sakthi Thanagal 5036. That's going to be the handle that I go with. That's the best that I could do. And this is what 5036 had to say. I think people need to remember what kind of player Kon Knueppel is. Summer League is full of guys playing selfish basketball in order to make a roster somewhere. That's not who Kon is. He might average 10 points per game on 50% shooting. The box score isn't going to tell you how good Kon is. To Walker's point, we should be watching Kon to see how his ball handling and defense is. That's it. So yep. I think that was in response to me saying I would like to see Kon Knueppel hit some shots. That I could go sort of basketball nerd and tell you all about the little things that I want to see from Kon Knueppel. But really, in my heart of hearts, I just want to see him go down there and knock some triples down. And because the Hornets need outside scoring, and I think
you didn't say high volume. At least you didn't say high volume. You just said the shots that he takes, just knock him down. To be fair to you.
Yeah, because I mentioned guys that have been drafted high by the Hornets and not been able to do that, like Malik Monk.
My God. All right, reset the calendar. Goodness gracious, man. Okay, reset the calendar. We move on. You can't help it.
I don't want to move on because someone in the comments also reminded me of another player that I forgot, which was James Bouknight. I purged James Bouknight from my memory, although I don't think the Hornets are going to play them unless there's a playoff situation. But the Portland Trailblazers, shout out James Bouknight. He's on the Summer League roster.
He is. Yes, I did see that. That's right.
Anyway.
Comment frustrates you. Why does it frustrate you?
Because it's so reminiscent of another fourth overall selection that the Hornets made many years ago, one Cody Zeller, who another Midwest guy that the Hornets took fourth overall. And that's the end of the similarities, right? So the Cody Zeller, someone that we so often people would say, oh, you can't measure what he does in the box score. What he does goes beyond the box score. Forget looking at points, rebounds, assists. Cody Zeller is a connector. He's just someone that helps you win. And I would always say, hey, I think the Hornets would win more games if he would do more in the box score, if he would score more, if he would rebound more, if he was accountable for more assists. the Hornets would win more basketball games. There's nothing wrong with doing it in the box score. And in fact, that rant, I think you could draw a line from that rant to the creation of every Hornets box score. I like guys that do it in the box score. I'm sorry. I'm not, and you know what? I'm not sorry. I'm not going to apologize for that. Scoring points is good. Getting rebounds is good. Getting assists is good.
Well, what about screen assist?
No, those don't show up in the box score. That's not in the box score.
Okay.
They measure that in some other deeper stat thing, but like that's not in the box score. We have a box score for a reason.
Maybe the cleaning the glass box score. I don't know. I just wanted to know if screen assists were okay. Well, and to that theory, Kon Knueppel actually spoke about this on SportsCenter when he was talking. I believe it was Michael Eaves as the anchor. He said, "I feel good about my ability to complement the players we have on the roster: LaMelo, Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller. I'm going to go out there trying to make their lives easy and hopefully make some shots. It'll be great." There he is making some shots and complement the other basketball players. So that does seem to be the role that he is defining for himself. And I have to imagine that the coaching staff is defining for Kon, at least in year one, before he starts to grow his game, second, third, fourth year. So with all the Cody Zeller jokes aside, what do you feel? How do you feel about that comment from Kon Knueppel saying, "I'm here to compliment the other guys that we have on the roster right now, the players that the Hornets are putting out there on social media, and really specifically the two in LaMelo and Brandon, clearly being the guys that feel like the future of this squad, and yet still have some questions about whether the Hornets are going to go all in with those two guys as their starting backcourt."
Well, it's a great quote because he recognizes what his role is going to be on the team. And I think so often, when we can go back to James Bouknight, so often the troubles that rookies face early on is not understanding what that role should be to help make them successful in their first couple of seasons that can then propel them to eventual stardom, because very few players come into this league in a perfect situation where they're going to get a ton of shots. And Ace Bailey, for all of his not wanting to go to Utah after they've cleared out nearly every single one of their veterans, he's in the perfect opportunity for him, because there will be plenty of shots. But Ace Bailey is still going to have to deal with the Bryce Sensabaugh and the Lowry Markkanens of the world. There is a hierarchy. There are politics to this. I saw a clip from Jeff Teague. That podcast is the best. Every time a Jeff Teague thing, short, whatever, hits my feed, I have to watch it. He's one of the best doing it right now. And he told the story of coming into the league, and he wanted to, average 20 points per game, and he wanted to do all of these things and take all these shots. He was a really good player at Wake Forest, and he comes in and nobody's passing to him, and nobody wants anything to do with him, and he can't get shots up, and he can't get minutes. And he's like, "What's going on? I don't understand." And I think it was Nick Van Exel, who was an assistant with Atlanta at the time, pulls him aside and says, "Jeff, you see that guy over there? He's making $20 million. You see that guy over there? He's making $10 million. What are you making?" There's politics. He said, if you want to get minutes and you want to get shots, start passing to Joe Johnson. And he started passing to Joe Johnson. Joe's like, "Hey, I like this rookie. This is a good rookie. We got to find some more time for this rookie." And then who was it? Josh Smith. Do I have that right?
Would make sense. He's on the team. Yeah.
Yeah. Josh Smith goes, "Hey, why are you passing to Joe Johnson so much?" And so then Jeff Teague's like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to pass to him a little bit more." And that's how he found his role and his place within that team. So all of that long, winding road to say it's great that Kon has that recognition already. He doesn't need a Nick Van Exel to come in and tell him that. I think a lot of that has to do with his family having been involved in high-level basketball, and he talked about that in the interview too. Like, it's not about his family teaching him basketball skills. A lot of that's just God-gifted. And maybe they gave it to him, via hereditary, genetics. But like,
yeah.
But it's not about the skills. It's about them helping him understand, like, this is how you deal with adversity. This is how you deal with, integrating yourself into a new team. All of that stuff's already built into Kon. He's already ahead of the game.
He had to do it in college, too, with Cooper Flagg on the roster and another top 10 pick on the roster, and did quite well at it. Yeah, let's continue this conversation with Kon Knueppel coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Sorry, I hate this segment. I apologize.
You're good. I was Fleming.
He's everywhere!
I do want to talk about how it impacts LaMelo, because there clearly hasn't been enough talent around LaMelo more often than not. Do we finally have that after this offseason, after this free agency period, after this draft? What do we expect from LaMelo this season, as long as he's healthy, with all of these guys now on the team? We'll get to it coming up next, LOH. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can be easier. Good for you, Doug. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. What was one surprising thing that maybe you noticed when you started tracking your spending with Monarch? Was there a specific category like takeout or subscriptions that added up more than you expected? There you go. Candles for Doug. Either way, you can find some answers to those questions if you go to Monarch. There are plenty of things that you can save money on or just manage your money a little easier. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. More Locked On Hornets ahead. I read this quote from Kon Knueppel wanting to compliment LaMelo Ball. He says that name first, perhaps for a reason. Then Miles and Brandon.
I'm telling you, this dude. By the way, Kon Knueppel has done like 17,000 high-profile interviews before he was drafted and since he's been drafted. I don't know who's doing his PR. But we need to sign that person up for Locked On Hornets because, I mean, geez Louise.
Well, Kon Knueppel was good with Bill Simmons. I think he was pretty good with SportsCenter. The media, the press conferences, not so much. He's not giving us a whole lot to chew on with those interviews, but with the sit-down interviews, the ones that are scheduled, the ones that are ready to go, he'll give you a little something there. And he gave us something here, wanting to compliment all of the other players, as we just mentioned, LaMelo being mentioned first. So the people that defend LaMelo, including myself, I think LaMelo is a really good basketball player, right? I want to build around him. I don't want to trade him. I want to see this thing through. Always what has been the case. It's been that you have to get enough talent around LaMelo to truly see what this team can accomplish with him, either being the first star or 1A, 1B type of star with Brandon Miller developing, whoever, right? Right now, I would say he's in a category by himself. We'll see what happens with some of the other young pieces on this team. I do think this is the year, Doug, where they finally did that. And that's what makes me happy. If we go, okay, of course LaMelo is going to hit this ultimate long slump after All-Star break. Of course he's going to go through all of these growing pains when there are so many injuries around him, and you're playing G Leaguers constantly. You're playing two-way contract guys constantly. What the Hornets have done now is they have attempted to erase the possibility of so many injuries altering this roster to where we have to play Marcus Garrett again. So now what they've done, just looking at the guards, it's crazy. We talk about playoff rotations being dwindled down to like, I'm fighting through it, 6.5. Being dwindled down to like even 6.5 in the postseason. You got 6 or 7 guards, Doug. It's crazy. So now you have guys that could take over for LaMelo if he gets injured and then keep the ship steady when he comes back. And then boom, maybe we don't have as much rust when he comes back from injury. You have a Collin Sexton, you have a Tre Mann, you have Kon Knueppel, who is trying to make LaMelo better, right? I think with what they've done so far, with what they've done overall, by having all of these guards, even a Spencer Dinwiddie could help him out. I think this is the year where maybe the shots come down a little bit. The shot selection gets better. The playmaking, it's smarter because he doesn't feel like he has to take everything on his shoulders. Now, okay, Collin Sexton can get you 20 points. I don't need to do this. Brandon Miller's health is going to play a big part here as well. We all know Miles Bridges. He has been, health-wise, a pretty steady rock for this team. This feels like the year, Doug, where we can get something close to definitive on LaMelo, on what he can be for this Charlotte Hornets team.
Yeah, obviously, like, health is the big thing. If he's not healthy, that's an answer in and of itself. And that's not a great answer because that to me, that's the biggest risk.
It's not satisfying in any way, shape, or form. And that one sucks for everybody involved, but you're right.
Correct. I will say that if LaMelo struggles before the trade deadline, I think people will look at it and say, well, yeah, but you didn't give him a big. In fact, you traded all of his bigs. And, so if you're complaining about the shots that he's taking, the shots that he's missing, or the assist he's not handing out. How you don't, if Kalkbrenner isn't the second coming of Mark Williams or this, some decent big, then what does he really have in terms of a good pick and roll big? There's a lot of things that Moussa Diabate does well. I'm not sure that running the pick and roll with LaMelo Ball is necessarily one of them. In fact, we saw many times, both he and Tijan Salon had a little issue with LaMelo Ball in terms of rhythm and knowing where to be on that pick and roll situation. And so, yeah, I think people will look at that and say, all you did was go and get Mason Plumlee. So you better fix that. Because I think that will be sort of a built-in excuse for LaMelo Ball. But other than that, I think you're right. I think we'll get more answers about this team. Can this team survive, without LaMelo Ball for a stretch of 5 to 10 games? Because I think he's not going to play 82 games. I think it's unrealistic to even expect,
almost anybody, unless you're Mikal Bridges looking for that
Chris
AC
Paul.
Green record. Yeah, that's about it. No, and go ahead.
Just to say, I think it's even unrealistic to expect him to play 75 plus. If he plays 70, I have a huge smile on my face.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I'll take that right here, right now, please, and thank you. So I anticipated that argument, too, where he doesn't have a real lob threat at the dunker spot to just finish a whole bunch of easy assists. I mean, that probably is good for, I don't want to be too dramatic. Is that good for 2 or 3 assists more a game? That's a lot. I don't know. So that's a legitimate argument, by the way. If we get to the deadline, LaMelo struggling, and you want to point to, man, we have Moussa, Mason, and Kalkbrenner. That's not a legitimate enough center rotation for a point guard to feast off of or feast with. That is a legitimate argument. To that, I say, this still is a roster, in my opinion, that is talented enough for LaMelo to win in other ways. Now what happens is, okay, yeah, you don't have the pick and roll big. And again, legitimate argument, right? We saw the sweet music he created with Montrezl Harrell because it was the best offensive big man that we had in a pick and roll and dunker spot. He and Montrezl, that was actually a legitimate, that was a 2-man game. Mark Williams really benefited from LaMelo, way more than LaMelo benefited from Mark. But you get the idea. At least Mark finished some assists for LaMelo. At least here, now it feels like the paint's going to open up. You have stretch 4s with Miles Bridges and Grant Williams coming back. I don't know when he comes back, maybe in 2026. God, I'm fighting through it today. But with Grant Williams and Miles Bridges spreading the floor out a little bit, I think that's going to help LaMelo. So the paint isn't nearly as clogged with hopefully better 3-point shooting with other playmakers where you're just on your toes because these guys can attack closeouts. For sure. It's not a perfect roster. I don't want this to be misconstrued as if LaMelo doesn't lead the Hornets to the playoffs, then we've answered everything about him. No, man, I don't think this is a playoff roster. I think this is hopefully a play-in roster. I don't think it's a top 6. I'm not asking LaMelo to go out there and lead this team to a 6 seed. That's not what I'm asking. I am asking for LaMelo's efficiency to go up. I'm asking for his decision-making as a lead ball handler to go up now that he's got better talent around him. He doesn't have to rely on G-Leaguers. I think that's fair to ask. I would like to see some of these other problem areas just take, another notch, maybe turn another notch up, like free throw attempts. That's been a legitimate improvement. Good job. Let's see if we can continue that. But I think now there's enough here to where there has been some kind of progression in can we find out some answers about Melo? And I'm happy for that.
And look, Kalkbrenner is tall. Mason Plumlee is tall. There will be easy spots for them. There's neither of them are super athletic. So
right.
There will be easy plays created for them, but just not as many as you would expect from some other rim running bigs in the league. It will put the onus, as you said, on his decision making and on his creativity. It will put the onus on Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Kon Knueppel, Collin Sexton, all of these players to knock down shots, because early in the season, teams are going to sleep on the Hornets' ability to knock down 3-point shots. The scouting report may not reflect the upgrades that they've made and the players that they're going to be getting back and the players that struggled historically versus what they normally do. So I think there will be a lot of opportunities for LaMelo to get into the mid-paint and then kick out and find open shooters. And so that will probably early in the season make up for a lack of a solid rim running big. It's just over the course of the regular season, I think you're either going to have to address that. And if you don't, then I think eventually LaMelo's just overall stats will suffer. But if they don't, then I think we have to give LaMelo Ball a ton of credit for overcoming. Look, all NBA players make mid other players better. That's the whole idea. Like, we might be saying, wow, Kalkbrenner, look at his stats, or Plumlee, he's having a career year. Why is that? And then your eyes go to LaMelo Ball, giving him passes where maybe some other point guards would not be able to find him in those spots. And so, yeah, if all of that comes together, then, as you said, to put a bow on this whole thing, we will have really good answers on exactly what LaMelo Ball is.
Yeah, let me untie that bow a little bit. I have a couple more things. So, but no, if you're a LaMelo Ball fan, then this should excite you. This is exactly what we've been asking for. And maybe I'll walk back exactly. Let's look at some of the other high offense, low defense guards in the league. No, you don't have the roster that Tyrese Halliburton had. You do not have that roster. You don't. You don't have the roster Trae Young had during the conference finals run. You don't have the roster Trae Young has now. Atlanta's going to be pretty good, right? They've done some nice things. Jalen Johnson coming back. He's a legit all-star. So you still have worse rosters than both of those guys do. But for the general theme of what we've been asking to surround LaMelo with, it's been something like this. You mentioned all of these other stars make mid players better, and maybe even a certain type of mid player better. Well, this is the idea about LeBron, who is considered either first or second among all NBA heads. But give LeBron the ball and let him cook and kick out to a whole bunch of three-point shooters so he can get to the rack. LaMelo, LeBron, clearly different basketball players, but not dissimilar in the way that they can facilitate. I do believe LaMelo is a guy that makes other players better. I think that probably took a step back last year because we don't have anybody else that can score. So LaMelo, go ahead and throw up that 32-footer. We kind of need you to do it, right? This is why there's no criticism of LaMelo in this way. It's just he was forced to play this particular brand of basketball that has Zach Lowe calling him a circus. Okay, the shot selection can be better, but my God, how much of it was truly out of necessity? And these are the answers I'm looking for. Now, I don't think it's a necessity. I don't think they're making the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be a 50-win basketball team. But now I don't think that specific aspect of his game that he showed last year is a necessity. And that excites me because it means we have talent, and it means that that's going to help LaMelo.
That's the really interesting thing is, like, if you could inject Jeff Peterson with truth serum, I would ask him, hey, did you go out and make all of these moves? Not necessarily because you think it makes the Charlotte Hornets a perfect basketball team, like exactly the kind of team you want, but more so just to show LaMelo, hey, we're adding pieces. It's not all on you. Like, just the psychology of it. Like, you don't have to go out and feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. Now, because we're building towards something. We're not finished, but we're building towards something.
Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Let's finally get to those over-unders. I get duped every year. I want to believe, and then, 5 people go down with injury the first week. I'm knocking on wood. We'll talk about the over-unders numbers coming up next. Okay, before we get to the Hornets win total, let's get to something Doug wants to talk about again with Kon Knueppel. Obsessed much? What you got, Doug?
Well, he was asked some very important questions in the SportsCenter interview. And look, when you are from Wisconsin and you go to North Carolina to play at Duke and now to play with the Charlotte Hornets, you're going to be asked about food culture. And you're going to be specifically, anyone drafted the Charlotte Hornets is going to be asked about barbecue. And so I don't know if he's been asked about this before, but this is the first time I've heard him talk about it. He was asked if he would take a Wisconsin brat over barbecue, and he chose a Wisconsin brat. I'm going with that for sure, he said. Cheese curds versus Krispy Kreme, and he goes cheese curds over Krispy Kreme. I have my thoughts on this. I want to know your thoughts on this.
Well, first of all, my thoughts are stay away, Milwaukee. This means nothing in terms of him wanting to play for you. Second of all, I want to say that Krispy Kreme is a delicacy that is matched by very little. I like cheese curds. Cheese curds are great. Shout out to Wisconsin for it. But North Carolina, it's the birthplace of Krispy Kreme. And when that hot and fresh sign is on, people come a flocking for a reason. It's so much better than all the other donuts out there with all the other mass-produced donuts. Krispy Kreme is the correct answer. In terms of brat or barbecue, please. It's barbecue. I don't even want to. I feel weird even having to answer that. It's so clearly barbecue. So look, the decision making from Kon, it's good on the court. Doesn't seem so good in the food court. But I'll say that barbecue is the answer there as well.
This isn't the first time that I've had these opinions on this show. It could be the first time for people listening. I'm going to make Walker mad. I'm going to make you mad, listener. I agree with a lot of what Kon says here. I would take a good Wisconsin brat. In fact, I just, for 4th of July, made a trip up to Cincinnati and had some spicy Mets. I had some delicious brats. I love it. I'm sorry. I feel like maybe my soul was in the Midwest and I was born in North Carolina. I have no problem. I love Western style barbecue. Not a huge fan of Eastern style barbecue. I love barbecue. But man, I mean, just all day long with the sausages. And then in terms of Krispy Kreme, I'm going to make you even more mad.
Yeah.
I enjoy Krispy Kreme. I enjoy the hot and fresh, but I am a cake donut guy. I like a good cake donut. I'm not a yeast donut. It's not my favorite. If you give me a cake donut versus a yeast donut, I'm taking the cake donut every single time. Here's what I love about Kon Knueppel's answer, though, in the abstract, is that he was super honest about it and super direct and didn't try to play in to the team that he was just drafted by. And he made no bones about it. It is better than the answer that I think Frank Kaminsky gave when he was asked about barbecue. And he said, barbecue is a sauce. It's not a food, which is like, again, Kon was honest without like knifing the culture, the food culture that he was about to be a part of. Like Frank Kaminsky just shoved the knife in and twisted it. Kon was just like, look, it's where I'm from. It's what I like. No disrespect. It's what I like.
Yeah. And no, he likes moist pieces of curdled milk is what he likes over Krispy Kreme donuts.
I'm not a cheese curds fan. I will disagree with that. I'm not a cheese curds fan.
I'm just telling him that's what he likes. That's what he chose in Wisconsin. Get out of here. Over under total for the Hornets. Pretty low. Despite all of this excitement we have surrounding free agency, it's pretty low, Doug. Share with the people what that figure is.
Oh, I think it's 24.5. Let me.
It is. No, I just thought you had it in front. Yeah. There you go. It's 24.5. I saw there was 25.5. I think with Bet Online. So.
Oh no, I'm sorry. FanDuel has it. FanDuel has it at 25.5.
There you go. Okay, so different figures for different websites / outlets, but there you go. 24.5. We'll call it 25.5 because we respect FanDuel around here.
That's right.
I remember a tweet from Andy Bailey like 3 years ago, and he would listen to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast with Josh Lloyd, and Josh Lloyd would have all of us host for every single team on to preview every single season, right? He'll have me on or you on to preview the Hornets, Jake Madison for the Pelicans, so on and so forth, every single team. And Josh Lloyd always asks us, do you think that they're going to hit the over or the under on this given number? And I remember Andy Bailey saying, I'm listening to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast. I just want one time for a host to take the under. Just once. Once I want to hear a host take the under. And I looked at myself and I was like, I feel like I'm pretty self-aware. I feel like I'm very aware of what the Hornets are. And yet I always take the over. But then they get injured the first week, the second week.
How do you anticipate that?
Just what are we going to do? So if you want my feelings on 25.5, I would take the over. My feelings tell you, Doug. This is what I feel, okay? Summer is for feelings. My feelings tell me that I want to take the over on this 25.5. But also logic, history, precedent, sickness, disease, it tells me that I should be taking the under. So do with that what you will, but that's how I'm feeling about this 25.5 number.
Yeah, Bulls at 31.5. Like, I think the Hornets are better than the Bulls. I mean, only 5 games better than the Brooklyn Nets at 20.5. I mean, come on. That's, you're talking about an improvement of 6 wins. All you need are 7 wins to hit the over. I mean, I think there's 7 wins there when you're talking about how many games LaMelo Ball missed, Brandon Miller missed. I mean, Brandon Miller, the significant one. I just think Vegas is sleeping on that player development. 2nd overall pick, and he was averaging 17, 19 points a game over the first 2 seasons. Like, that's a significant missing piece there. And then you add on to it, you're adding a scorer in Collin Sexton, like I don't know. I mean, are we calling him an elite scorer? I mean, he's a really, really good scorer off the bench. I think that there's enough pieces in here where you could confidently do the over. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go the other way here. Yeah. Because you know our record of betting the buzz. If you've been listening for a while, you know our record is not very good.
We quit.
So I think
we had to.
It's in the team's best interest if we fade this and bet and just hammer the under. So in fact, I think I'm going to start a GoFundMe and take donations that we can put into the under to see how far we can hammer it, just to get the reverse mojo going with the Charlotte Hornets. And if somehow it gets apocalyptic and they go under again, maybe we just give the money to charity or something.
Well, yeah, we just win. We win the big bet, and that's what we do.
But I can't imagine that happening, because when we bet the buzz, it doesn't turn out very well. So maybe that's the play here. But yeah, I mean, you look at the roster and you think, obviously it's not a perfect roster. Is it a playoff roster? If a lot of stuff has to go right, but it's got to be better than 25.5. I mean, that probably puts you fourth worst in the East, right? Fourth, fifth worst in the East.
Yeah, well,
and in the East, I mean, the East is so terrible this year. They're going to have plenty of opportunities to beat up on, a wounded Pacers team. Plenty of opportunities to steal one from a Celtics team without Jason Tatum. I mean, there's just going to be so many opportunities, if the Hornets are healthy, to take some of these games.
26 wins would have landed you exactly the fourth worst team in the East. No, not the league, but fourth worst team in the East, which is almost, it's sixth in the league, fourth in the East. Here's a better question before we end the show today. Let's say that the Hornets reach that mark. Let's just say they get to 26 wins. Okay, they barely hit the over, but they get to 26. How many questions do we have about Charles Lee at the end of next season if they only win 26 games and they're relatively healthy? Right, like just maybe the 20th healthiest team in the league as opposed to the 30th. Yeah, that we wouldn't be happy with that. A lot of things have to go wrong. A lot of things have to happen for us to truly figure out what it is. Hey, was Jeff Peterson wrong in constructing this team? Did they just get destroyed? They scored 120 every night, but they allowed 130. There are some questions to answer, but Charles Lee would be on the hot seat immediately if you finish with a 19-win season with all of the excuses there that I fully believe in. But if you finish with 26, you hit the over by a half a game. Yeah, 26 games, 26 wins. Nah, man, people are not going to be happy with that.
Well, the net rating is going to be very interesting, because it's, to me, the biggest question that looms over the roster as it's currently constructed. Still some time. People working the phones in Vegas. You never know. The Hornets could get Jared Allen or Nick Claxton or whatever and put a defensive anchor there down low. But the biggest question is, how much can Charles Lee do to raise the defensive floor of this team? It's not going to be an elite defensive team. The roster is just not constructed to do it. And honestly, even if they added an Allen or a Claxton, it still wouldn't be a roster, in my opinion. Not enough wing defense to really make that big of an impact and be like top 10 defense, right? But it's like, if the Hornets are a bottom 5 defense, then yeah, 26, 25, 24 wins seems right. But if they're, if they're hanging around 12 to 16 in defense and then really good offensively, then okay. Well, now we're starting to talk about play in, possibly play off. So yeah, that's the biggest question in my mind. And if they don't do that, then yeah, I think you have to have some serious questions.
All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com, also hosting Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.